Hey, thanks for being a part of the conversation. Let's do some pod crashing. Episode number 317 is with Saleha Mohsin from the podcast Big Take DC.
I'm great. So excited to be here.
Oh, I'm excited to talk with you, too, because I am a news junkie. I have to know, and I know I'm not the only one. And that's what I love about your podcast, Big Take DC, because you know what? It gives me room to breathe. It's not like a soundbite I'm going to get on local news at the top of the hour, but you give me the story. You share with me the journey.
Yeah, and that's what we really endeavored to do, where we kind of hold your hand, we bring you into Washington, we walk you through the city, and we also take you back out into the heartland and say, hey, here are all the ways that the heartland or the rest of America, the East Coast, the left coast, the right coast, north, south, all of it connects to what these powerful people in Washington, whose power, by the way, is given by the people, how it all connects and how what they do gives or doesn't give the rest of us the ability to pursue the American dream. We take you into little complicated issues that could affect our futures. You know, there's a debt spiral. Everyone talks about the deficit in these very big, generalized, esoteric ways. Well, I'm here to break it all down for you, make you feel smarter at the end of the episode, and really understand the power that you have with your vote to affect the future. You know,
you talk about that American dream. Oh, my God. To me, the American dream is trying to win the lottery. I swear to God, that's what everybody's investing in. And that scares me so badly.
Oh, I love this angle, actually, that the American dream is trying to win the lottery. There is this feeling in the country that things are not going well. And one of the things that has really caught my attention in the last few months is how low the American public's trust in our government, in our leaders, our public institutions, the judiciary system, Congress, the executive branch, how low that trust is. And I think that it's also very low in the media. You know, I think podcasts have really come out as an intimate discussion, a more trusted medium to, like you said, give people some space, give them the information, and come to your own conclusion. I'm not going to give you the conclusion at the top of the show. I'm not even going to give you my view, my take, my conclusion at the end of the show. I'm going to give you all the tools you need to figure that out yourself.
See, that's what I want. That's exactly what I want, because I'm tired of going to every single network on my apps and then having to develop my own relationship. But the thing I like about Big Take DC is the fact that, first of all, it's not a 2-hour podcast. So wherever you're driving in any city USA, that 19 minutes right there is enough to create a conversation with another person.
Absolutely. This is the amount of time. Our episodes are between 16 and 20 minutes long. This is the amount of time it takes to do one household chore, a little chunk of your commute, a little bit of a walk, a jog, whatever it is. And I'm here to educate you and learn from you. You know, our producers and and reporters across Bloomberg, we travel into different states. You're going to hear voices from Texas, Iowa, South Carolina, Ohio, which is where I'm from. And, you know, there's so much reliance on polling, right? This is one thing that I've really taken on myself. And I've decided that we're not going to rely too heavily on polls. If we do, we're going to say, are some caveats. This is how people feel now, not what they're going to do in November. But also, let's just ask, let's say, a Trump supporter. I did an episode that is called 91 felony counts in a campaign to run, about how Trump voters feel about the possibility of Trump being a convicted felon. Rather than just giving you a poll number of how Trump voters feel about that, you get to hear on my podcast how a reporter asks the Trump supporter a question at their rally and how they answer the question, not just 24% believe this, Y, and Z.
Yeah. See, and that's my connection with you guys, is because you're asking the questions that I'm thinking. And it's almost like you live in my neighborhood and you're bringing it to us.
I love to hear that. You know, there's broad topics that we want to bring you. There's also economic topics. Look, it's the economy, stupid. And I really believe that that goes a long way with how people feel about how their country is going and how their future is going to be. So economists across Washington have so much power to make massive decisions that they affect our daily lives, how much our credit card debt is going to be, how much our home mortgage, our ability to buy a home, which is part of achieving that American dream. And who are these economists making this decision, and what data are they using? Well, I brought to you another economist who said that some of the data that's being used is not good data.
Another thing that you guys touched on was the IRS. I automatically thought that they were already in the online tool business, but your podcast really brought me into a picture that explains that they're trying to catch up with these big businesses that are doing our taxes.
Absolutely. They're challenging TurboTax, H&R Block, and a lot of other private accountant businesses that are there to help file your taxes. But here the IRS is saying, you know what? We are here to give you this public service to make it easier and cheaper to file taxes, that it's accessible to everyone. One thing that I think about frequently are what are all the touch points between what happens in Washington and the rest of the country. And I think filing your taxes, that is one time in the year where we are right up against whether Washington is working or not. There was a time in the 1980s that a lawmaker told me about that the IRS for some reason couldn't issue refunds. And it became a really big deal in Congress because constituents were calling their lawmakers saying, where is my refund?
Yep.
And so these moments where we our lives interact with what is going on in Washington, I think are very important to examine in order to start identifying the reasons that trust between the public and the government is so low right now.
Listeners need to understand that Big Take DC, which is on iHeartRadio, gives you the opportunity to take a subject such as X. There's a lot of people that are leaving X and Twitter because it's so you don't know what to believe, but you don't go in there and tell us to leave it. You go in there and you talk with people about, okay, this is why there's discomfort in decisions that are being made. And it's almost like you're a mom and dad without being a mom and dad, like maybe a big sister.
I love that. Yeah, big sisters are a little bit more friendly and it's a safer space and you can be yourself without getting scolded and you can be a little embarrassing. So I'll take it. Yeah, everyone talks about the one question I get a lot is, do sanctions work? So we did a whole episode. I brought to people someone that very few people have access to, a Treasury Department's chief economist for the sanctions unit, not someone who's trotted out on CNN and MSNBC and CNBC with talking points. This person came and I sat with her for an hour and got her off her talking points to talk about how, remember that time 2 years ago when Americans had to pay more at the gas pump because of sanctions overseas? Did that effort even work? And I kind of drilled in with some smart questions, with pushback, with empathy to try to figure out what can we learn from what we did 2 years ago.
One of the things that's scaring a lot of people, and I think it's because we're uneducated, and things like Big Take DC will give us that opportunity to learn more, and that is the military's mysterious AI project.
I loved this episode. This was such a fun one to do. We have a great reporter. So I bring to you experts inside the newsroom, my colleagues, and also external episodes. And the military has this mysterious AI project called Project Maven.
That's it.
And we talked to this one man, Will Roper, who, when he was working on it, he said he couldn't even tell his wife what he did for a living. Which is crazy. That's sort of the nature of Washington. It's all lots of cloaks and daggers and kabuki games. And it tells you that what our future ability, our military capacity is going to be, and how what Google does and what Microsoft does and what abilities we have in our pockets, in our hands with our smartphones, and what that means for the military.
As a podcaster, it's opened up the door for journalism to take it to a new, different level. But do you still have to abide by the rules of the disciplines that we learned in the industry growing up?
Absolutely. I think the media has lost a lot of trust of the public. Podcasting is one format where that trust is still there. It's an intimate moment. I'm right inside your ear and bringing you sounds and voices. But, for Bloomberg, we're financial journalists here, so it's all about following the money, not partisanship or party loyalty. So I'm able to apply that same journalistic code of I'm just looking for the data. My job is to show you what's happening, not tell you what's happening. And I've really leaned into that with audio. I can bring you the sounds to be able to show you.
Oh, my God, the story that really opened up my eyes, because I had no clue that any of this was taking place. The Japanese company that was bidding to buy the U.S. steel. I had no idea this was going on.
Oh yeah, I know. This is gripped Washington, but it's so interesting to me to hear that it didn't really resonate for you. But I think it's an important thing to talk about because our president is talking about it. Our lawmakers are talking about it. U.S. Steel, America was so proud of its strong manufacturing economy. Blue collar workers, plant makers, made in America was supposed to be this amazing, great thing that you could build your life on. It gave people the tools to go up in the sort of socio-economic ladder. And all of a sudden, manufacturing isn't doing so well in America. And now we have a Japanese company that wants to swoop in and buy a company that is called U.S. Steel. In its name, it is patriotic. What does that mean? And it's becoming a campaign issue.
Yeah. And it really, that right there is, and I think the reason why it hasn't affected me down here in the South is because we're not a steel city. But you get into Pittsburgh or you get into other cities that are steel built, then now we have a situation that needs to spread across the country, and we need a storyteller. And that's where you guys come in with Big Take DC.
Yeah, I'm your storyteller. If you think the Federal Reserve's work is really complicated and sticky, you know what? It's important to understand it. I'm going to unpack it for you with a really interesting angle about how 2024 and what the Federal Reserve, this haunted, vaunted ivory tower building, what it really means for your daily lives.
Wow. So one of the thing is that your journalists are so honest, and one of the things that I really kind of had a lot of compassion for was when it was admitted that even going to fundraisers is a pain. And it's like, how do you put yourself through those situations to bring us back that story? We never get to hear your side.
Absolutely. And I think we should share more of that. I've got colleagues on our White House team and our national campaign reporters. Do you know what they do when their principal, whether it's the president or a presidential candidate, when that person is out there campaigning, oftentimes they're stuck in the back of a van wishing that they had a boxed dinner because they are cramped. They can't feel their leg. They're hungry and they are filing stories and they have a tape recorder. So they are equipped to use their smartphones to record what's going on and bring us stories about what's going on and shine a light on what these people in power are really doing with the power that they have.
I would have loved to have been in the room with one of your journalists yesterday when the Kennedy family went with Biden and not Robert Kennedy Jr. That to me was a pivotal moment in history.
Oh, I will absolutely. I think now you've given me a good podcast episode idea about bringing that reporter into the studio and saying, hey, what was that like? What were the looks on people's faces when that happened?
Yeah, because and that's how open you're allowing me to be by this podcast, because most of the time, and I'd like to see the people that have pushed news away, don't want to do news because they're afraid of the news.
Yeah, they are afraid. I think that, that's part of where people have lost trust in public institutions and the media. But I think that if you're afraid, it's time to lean away from telling people what to think and using esoteric terms, and instead listening to how people feel and listening to the emotion behind some incendiary rhetoric instead of getting just stuck on the war on words.
Has Ron DeSantis lost his shine? Did he go back to Florida with his tail between his legs?
Oh, that's such a good question. His campaign advisors are hoping that he'll still have some influence. There is that sort of like kabuki game that's played in politics of like, well, did this person run because they thought they could win, or did they run because they wanted a cabinet position or influence?
Oh, yeah.
And let's see what happens with Ron DeSantis and some of the big pull that he actually did have and momentum that he had.
How do you mentally stay in shape? Because I've been with people that were the photographer for the police department that actually did not do well after a few years. Look at you right in the middle of the storm. How are you surviving?
There is a little bit of desensitization that happens, but I watch a lot of fictional things that are away from politics. I do not watch things like House of Cards. I don't read political and financial books all the time, only if I really need to for work. So I spend a lot of my time trying to release and go into another world, some other completely new world of fantasy and fiction that I can get a bit of a break from what's going on in Washington.
Is Ralph Hunter a fire starter?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know.
I mean, he brings up a great point, and we're especially here in the South. I mean, he's from South Carolina, so we know about this guy. He would still vote for the president if he was in jail.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I'd call him a fire starter because if that's how one constituent is feeling, then there's probably more people who feel that way too.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, because we're in this place now where for the past 4 to 5 years we've broken up our relationships with family members and friends, and it seems like we all have something to say, but it's not bringing us together. And that's what I like about this podcast is that Big Take DC, it at least puts us in a position where all you have to know is just a little bit.
Absolutely. We're here to unpack that data for you. And so that you can leave your 15 to 18 minutes that you spend with me as I unpack everything, you can leave that with a little bit more information for the next time that you're having a debate at the dinner table or at the kitchen table. That's one thing that's really important to me is that I think that people want to say things and find that they're not being heard.
Yeah.
I think if we really start to listen to each other, then maybe we'll see some bipartisanship and unity coming through soon.
How are you putting these episodes together? I mean, with that team that you've got, I mean, I to be in that newsroom, I mean, it's got to be all up on this board somewhere. This story has to be here. This story has to be there. This one has to be on time. Where's this story, Johnny?
Yeah, there's a lot of that. I've got a really strong team. We can rely on a very strong Washington bureau for the Bloomberg news team. We also rely on our bureaus across the country. This podcast is really demonstrating the power and prowess of Washington reporters. We have 170 reporters in Washington that cover all angles of what is going on in the most powerful capital in the world. And we have some amazing talent, people who really know their stuff. And if I bring them into the studio and say, hey, don't talk too wonky to me. Remember, explain it to me like I'm 5 because I don't know your space as well as you know it, then you really get to the heart of stuff. So I love that I can showcase the talents and expertise of my colleagues in a unique way.
Do you think this nation can fight 3 different wars?
Oh, I think if anyone can do it, it's America, but it's not an easy feat. But that is why we are a superpower, and that's why we are in charge, have a responsibility to provide global security.
See, this is what I'm talking about. I want my listeners to pay attention to your vocal tone, your pitch, and your volume, because this is the conversation that you bring to Big Take DC.
Absolutely. I endeavored to be neutral. That's not hard because I think both parties are a little bit going in random directions. But also, I just want to know the information. I just want to bring the facts to you.
Yeah, yeah. Is Washington, D.C. the brain or the heart of this nation?
Oh, that's such a great question. I think the people are the heart.
Ooh.
I think the people are the heart. I don't know if I'm going to say Washington should be the brain. Let's say that.
Okay. Where can people go to find out more about what you're doing? And because they need to learn more about Bloomberg and about how you have built up this relationship with other listeners and that we can become a community.
Yeah, listen to the Big Take DC podcast. I am available for your DMs on Twitter and on LinkedIn at Saleha Mohsin.
I love it. Please come back to the show anytime in the future. The door is always going to be open for you.
Thank you. I had so much fun.
Well, you be brilliant today, okay?
You too.